Do you want to start with the history stuff first?
No, I'll go first. Fine. Fine. Actually, no. Let's do the history stuff first, but I want to beat you to something because I found it very fascinating. Did you read about John Pickering II at all?
No.
So he's the one who donated the half acre so the city could have an official burial ground.
Oh.
With the promise that his family could graze their cows on the grass between the graves.
That's funny.
Yeah. So I just thought that was a fun little fact I wanted to throw in there.
Wait, what was his name again?
John Pickering II, and then
If I'm not
there's
mistaken.
John Paul Jones. The house near that is also significant in some way, but I didn't do that.
Yeah, John Paul Jones is a very big historic naval captain. Um, Probably one of the best. Like
Well, his house is right in that area.
Well, it was a house for his time. He was born in Maryland, and I believe he's buried in Maryland.
Okay.
Actually, no, he was born in England, and then he was buried in Maryland. But he was a psycho. He he would take his ship to England, and he'd go mess up the English ships in England during the Revolutionary War. So instead of waiting for them to come over here, he would go over there and just absolutely destroy them. Like he'd roll up to towns, and in England, and he had
what 7?
in the Revolutionary War.
Oh my god!
And he has a famous saying that everybody in the Navy knows. It's there was some captain who asked him to surrender, and he responded with, "I have not yet begun to fight." And it was like, and he was a psycho, man.
Damn.
But yeah, he lived in one of the houses there in Portsmouth for a while.
So I like opening these up. I like talking about the graveyard itself and our experience first, and then see where it goes there. I liked all of the very unique tombstones. I think it had way more than the Erie graveyard did.
Oh,
the
for
cemetery, whatever you want to call it. I was reading articles on it, and I've seen it both portrayed as both. I think graveyard is an older term, though.
Yeah, perhaps. I don't know. I'm not too familiar with it.
Because when I was researching Erie cemetery stuff, like, it's always referred to as a cemetery.
Yeah.
But, like, they have that, like, open book one that's really cool. That's, like, is it the mother and daughter of the house that burned down?
I believe so.
One? I liked the graves that they showed, like, the historical ones. Like, right as you walk in, there's 2 boards with pictures of the headstones and a little bit about who's buried there.
Yeah, that was very cool. And that was cool for me, too, where I'm interested in the history. Like, that actually gave me, like, okay, like, points that I can go look up and research myself, too.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I agree, though. Very cool headstones there. You know, one of the main ones we saw was the classic, like, Puritan headstone. It had the skull with the wings.
Mm-hmm.
Those are everywhere in New England. They're all over the place, and it's mainly because like the Puritans were very prominent in New England in the 1600s. But and if you don't know who the Puritans are, they're they when the Protestant Church left like the Catholic Church, like they had that split, and the Protestant Church was born. About 15 years later, in like 1530. There was like this movement in England that was like kind of going against the Protestant Church of England. And they were basically claiming that this new Protestant church was just another Catholic church. Like they didn't let go of any of like the Catholic stuff.
Are you mansplaining this to me?
No, I'm explaining it.
I know, I'm just giving you grief.
But the damn it, I lost my train of thought.
You were explaining what the Puritans, who they are, what they are.
Oh, yeah,
how
yeah.
it's big in New England.
So, after, the Church of England was, like, the prominent Protestant church in England, because England wanted to let go of Catholicism, because the Catholic Church controlled everything in Europe in the 1500s. And the Puritans were this group that basically was going against the Protestant church because they believed it was holding on to too many Catholic ideals. And the Protestant church at the time was like really upset with the Puritans, wouldn't let them like split, kind of just proving their point that they are no different than the Catholic Church. So the Puritans then came to America to find religious freedom, and those were the Pilgrims.
Mm-hmm.
So then from there, just waves and waves of Puritans came over from England, and then that actually became not only like a main religion here, but they had a huge cultural influence as well. And then I'll save more about like their beef with like the Quakers and that whole thing for like the Quaker one that we're going to do. But that's just like a quick explanation of like who the Puritans were.
Yeah, and
when
how
you see
common it is in New England to have those. Honestly, New England's unique in the sense there's so much history here that you do get many unique grave sites and older ones, and because you got that one cemetery in Amesbury that is like very Revolutionary War veterans.
Oh, that's in Newburyport.
Newburyport, the Mall. I always forget, like, I call it the Mall.
They got a lot of Revolutionary War veterans there. It's very cool.
Side note, I did get roasted on our trip back to Colorado because I said, oh, that's wicked smart or something. I used wicked as an adjective, and she roasted me. She's like, they've converted you. Yep.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever been more proud.
As long as I'm not saying, I'm wicked smart, wear my khakis. I'm going to do a horrible New England accent. But yeah, you guys got pirates, witches, vampires. There's even a grave site out here. I was reading on it, and I don't know where exactly it is, but it was people who were claimed to be vampires.
Oh, that's sick. We gotta find that.
Yeah, we gotta find that. I know they're kind of around here and there in unique places, but yeah, New England's unique in that sense. So, I mean, I didn't get any spooky vibes. My spooky senses weren't going off there. But we were there in daylight, and it was busy because it's Portsmouth. Portsmouth is a busy city. You had people walking, not even a block down the road. There was a movie in the park. It was a beautiful, beautiful night to be walking. I argued with you. I said, let's get dinner first and go during spooky time, which is just when the sun goes down. But, you know, we wanted pictures. Yeah. So, but yeah, there's a uniqueness, which you think these graveyards are unique. I want to go overseas. So I want to go to, like, you know, Europe and see some of their grave sites and stuff.
Now, the point of graves, too, it definitely was underwhelming for how haunted they were claiming it to be. Because, like, when we got there, it was basically in someone's backyard, and there were like there was like this old couple with their dog barking at us, and they were like trying to get him in. And,
well, like I said, there was a lot going on around me that I was distracted, but I definitely did look into some of the stuff. The Vaughn Tomb.
Tell me about it.
There's a staircase underneath it.
No shit.
28 unidentified bodies. Yep, 25 unidentified skeletons on shelves. Whoa. It's a crypt. Yeah.
That's so cool. I didn't know
that.
that.
I was doing a research, and this article was actually really cool. I wrote down the name of the article, too. But there's this lady in Portsmouth. I don't know if she lives there. Radio Field Trip, Exploring Portsmouth's Haunted History. And the article was written by New Hampshire Public Radio.
Okay.
It was Rick Genke and Mary McIntyre, but the lady who leads the tours is I wrote her name down again, Roxy Zwicker, and she leads these haunted tours. Now the article covered a couple other places in Portsmouth, and it's kind of cool because we had someone in Erie that did haunted tours too, and he had one of those creepy vans. But, like, it was all painted black, and it was decorated like Halloween, and it had some whitewash on it and stuff. Side note. But, anyways, so Roxy leads these tours, and she goes over the haunted history specifically. And the biggest thing in this cemetery is that this is new. The tomb we saw is new. But under the original headstone was a staircase that led to a crypt that has 28 unidentified bodies, and they still don't know who they are today.
So is that staircase underneath that tomb right there?
Yeah.
Oh, whoa.
Yeah. I'm sure they covered it up more permanently because, one, it's, if you leave it open, it's going to attract street youths.
Oh, of course.
To go down in there, and it's probably not safe and all that fun stuff. But I found that fascinating. And then I was also reading that one of the things people have experienced is when they take a photo, the doctor, he was a Dr. Vaughn, and this tomb was meant for his family. It said originally that 3 people are buried there. But then they found the staircase, and there's 28 people. And they don't know if it's family, they don't know who it is.
Wow.
Yeah. But Dr. Vaughn's above-ground tomb, it's been known to glow when captured in pictures. Yeah. Again, we weren't there in the dark, so we don't know. But the other stuff that this article went over is just, like, the presence that people feel. Like, they'll hear footsteps, much like my experience with Erie, as I told you that story of when I heard the, like, jogging steps behind me and my one running buddy. We both turned at the same time and looked at each other like, what? But yeah, footsteps, touches. Roxy, who leads the tour, she felt a push once. She was, like, pushed. And then, there was another point. Oh, and it's only at certain graves people get this overwhelming emotion and have just broke down crying and don't know why. And it's only at certain graves. They didn't identify which graves those were, but people have felt, like, overwhelming emotion. And then there is one more haunting that I read about, because I didn't find much. Like, the biggest thing is on that tomb, and then your normal spooky stuff touches. You feel a presence. There's a couple entities that people have seen. The one is Elizabeth Pierce. She's been reported to be, like, following people through the graveyard, and she's the one of the wing-skulled decorated graves.
Mm-hmm.
And then the unknown entities, on multiple accounts, people have cited 2 children. And around this grave, parents have felt, like, intense grief. So.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was interesting to read up on it and stuff. Like you said, it was underwhelming when we went, but I think there was too many distractions. I still think we should have gone, like, at dusk.
Yeah. Knowing that tomb thing now, maybe that is worth another visit.
Yeah. It's close enough too, so.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's basically your normal spooky stuff, creepy touches, footsteps, sense of a presence. People will look over their shoulder like they feel like they're being watched and followed. But every article I read, it just sounds like the spirits are more playful. At least from the perspective of, because I read like 5 different articles, and this Roxy Zwicker was named in a lot of them because she leads those tours. I don't know for how long. I was gonna do a little more just on her, like nothing specific, just like how long she had been doing it and stuff, and if she's still doing it, because that might be fun to go on too. Find haunted tours to go on. Be pretty sick.
That would be cool. This might be kind of misplaced in our conversation here, but also the tombs that I really liked, that I was really curious about, were the skull and crossbones.
Mm-hmm.
So I looked into those. First, the most famous one in that cemetery is a guy named Captain Tobias Lear. And Tobias Lear, this guy, he was born and raised in Portsmouth. He was a captain to a merchant ship. He himself was kind of just like he was a local merchant. However, his son was very, very successful and, like, huge. He was George Washington's secretary.
Oh, I remember you talking about
that
this.
dude had a wild life. So
Let's hear
read
it.
up. Yeah, I read about. So his son was never in the military. He went to Harvard during the Revolutionary War, so he didn't fight or anything like that. But then after Harvard, he became Washington's secretary. And basically, yeah, he just did all of like his bookkeeping, did all like recorded all kinds of stuff. But sorry, I'm gonna have to consult my notes here because there's some wild stuff about him. He had 3 wives, 2 of which 3 wives at different times. It wasn't all at once. But,
I was gonna be like, nice.
But 2 of which were relatives of George Washington. And he actually became like very, very close to George Washington and was there in the room the day he died and recorded his last words. And George Washington's last words were "'Tis well."
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. But after George Washington's death, actually this might have even been before his death, although I'm not sure. I'd have to look up the actual timeline of it. He also served as Thomas Jefferson's secretary as well. And there's actually a big historical conspiracy because I guess there's evidence that since he had all this documentation and access to all this paperwork and whatnot, he destroyed a lot of stuff, all the negative stuff for Thomas Jefferson. So apparently there's like this conspiracy that he was like really caught up in with like destroying. Basically, he helped Thomas Jefferson get elected, apparently. That's the conspiracy, and he destroyed a whole bunch of like correspondence that was like would have worked against him. But then he had a very mysterious death as well. He committed suicide with no suicide note, no explanation, nothing, which everybody seems very perplexed about because he was a secretary and that was his thing. He recorded and wrote everything.
Yeah.
So you would think he would have wrote a suicide note, but he didn't.
What if it just wasn't found?
I don't know. Maybe. But they didn't.
Are there theories behind it?
They think someone, he was a big political figure. He might have been murdered. But he also had some bad financial issues as well. So he wasn't good with money. But yeah, that's what I read about him. And his dad is the one who's buried there.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's buried down in Annapolis.
So his dad is basically only famous because of his son.
Yeah. Although I don't know, I think he was like locally famous.
I guess that's carrying on a legacy, though. Like you share the last name and stuff.
Yeah.
Merchant or pirate?
He was a merchant.
I know. I was joking.
But that also got me, speaking of pirates, that got me looking into that because his headstone has the skull and crossbones on it. And those headstones were made by a guy named John Homer. And he had a stone carving shop in Boston. And I guess those are pretty exclusive to Massachusetts and like the Boston area. And has no religious significance. People just thought it looked cool. So I was like, that's a funny
dope.
thought.
It's kind of like it's kind of like the what were the tree ones called?
Oh, the Woodman of the World.
Yeah, it's just kind of a cool thing.
Yeah. But yeah, the skull on it was like it's described as like the realistic skull. So he was just a really good stone carver, and people were like, "I want that."
Nice.
Yeah.
It's like
So.
If I wanted to be buried, I would want something unique as my headstone.
Yeah.
But I don't know what.
Yeah.
Something like that would make no sense to anyone. Like just maybe a little turtle on it.
Yeah.
I feel like you're gonna see that though. I feel like in, when our generation goes, and the generation to follow, people are more into their interests than anything else, and I think more and more people are gonna go with, oh, that looks cool.
Yeah.
It might hold some significance, but I bet you see a lot more unique graves in the future.
Oh, yeah, I bet. I don't know. I feel like getting buried.
But now a lot of people are like, plant me in a tree, put me in some jewelry.
Yeah.
I'm like, hack me up and let a med student, like, get an F on my forehead.
Yeah.
That's from a comedian. That's from a comedian. I forget which one it is, but I cracked up. I'm like, that's what I want. It's definitely what I want.
You
like
just get
if
the
I
shittiest med student.
if I can bring some comedy in the afterlife, like
Yeah.
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 No, or throw me on one of those farms that goes over like it's like for the CSI portion of crimes and stuff. Where, like, they watch body decomposition and stuff. But, like, you know, when you donate your body to science, like, to me, at least I'm assured to be dead. There's, like, no mistake of burning me alive or burying me alive.
See, that's kind of why I want to be cremated, though. Is so that way, like, if I'm not dead, that'll kill me. You know? Like, they're making sure I'm dead.
Yeah, but so would a scalpel cutting open my chest.
True. I think they pump you full of formaldehyde though before they send you out there. I don't think you're like a fresh body like when you're a cadaver. I think you've been preserved. I don't know.
Yeah,
though.
but I'd be dead.
Yeah.
For sure. And there's a little. I think you know if for some reason people like mistake me dead, I'd rather go buy a knife or buy like something not as painful as fire or being buried alive. That's like two of my irrational fears.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty wild.
Is it inappropriate to tell our offspring, just if you think we're dead, just make sure you put an extra stake through our heart? But, yeah, so the more I researched about pointed graves, the more I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. This is kind of spooky. I wish my husband would listen to me once in a while and let me go at dark.
Yeah, I mean, we could always do a round two. That's always on the table.
Yeah. Are those the people who... So, back to the history of it. I know we got a little sidetracked, but are those the people that stood out the most?
Yeah. You know, I looked at some of those other people on the thing, on that, like, board. And, yeah, none of them really, like, caught my attention.
There's the mother and daughter who died in a house fire.
Yep.
And their gravestone's cool because it's like an open book.
Yeah.
And they're both buried in that, like, side-by-side plot, I think. Or together. I can't remember what I read. Because I think, was the daughter an infant?
I believe so.
Because it was a house fire.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, very cool. Well, do you want to just keep talking?
Can we pause it for a minute?
Yeah.